Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Godzilla podcast. Finally, another Patreon episode. We owe 5 people Patreon invites, 3 of which responded to my messages in Patreon. And our first guest, supporter for a long time, is Zach Heller. Welcome, Zach, to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Zach, we are extremely delighted to have you.
We're going to get in today to Zach's Godzilla history, what movies Zach likes the best, what movies Zach thinks are the worst, and then we're going to play a game of Stump the Host against Drew. I have some quiz questions ready to go when we get into that.
I must warn you, Zach, I've been in quarantine, so all I do is study up on kaiju trivia all day long.
I mean,
no, I do go to work under very strict quarantine circumstances, so I don't just have time to.
I mean, you're in luck because while I've been in quarantine, all I've been doing is watching Ultraman, so I'm probably not going to do too hot with Godzilla trivia, but I will do my absolute best.
It's Godzilla adjacent. You could pick up on a few answers, you know.
Hopefully.
I don't know. With these 5 questions, I'm not sure about that. I don't have any Ultraman crossover, but maybe it'll help. So, Zach, where are you from?
I live in Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. Awesome. I was thinking about moving there. What do you think?
I mean, I like being here. Other than with what's going on, in the world, being in a major city, probably anywhere sucks right now. But in Austin, it's so condensed. We have like 2 million people in the greater metro area, so there's just people everywhere. Like even when you think, oh, if I go to the grocery store at off hours, no, it's still packed. But I'm doing good so far as I can tell. No infection here, so
that's awesome.
Yeah, good to hear.
Did you grow up in Texas or what?
Oh no, I grew up in central Pennsylvania. Moved to Texas after I graduated college.
Do you mind telling us what you studied?
History. Went to Penn State, studied history, specialized in Japanese history in the 20th century for probably obvious reasons, and then
right.
And then a little bit of early Western civilization. My claim to fame is that I wrote my final senior thesis on Godzilla, but it's nothing phenomenal. Like it's not this 100-page magnum opus. It was like a 15-page paper just about 1954 and the impact it had on not just Japanese pop culture, but like global pop culture.
That's awesome.
But
we got a real...
Yeah, this was this was also like 10 years ago, so, the researcher cap has been off for a while. But it's always something that I've been super passionate about ever since I was a small kid.
So we got a real expert in the program today.
We got we've come up with a nickname for like every single person that's come on, if I remember right, many of them. Probably not all, I don't know. Zach, I think you can now don the name the Godzilla Grad. So here we are with Zach Heller, the Godzilla college graduate. Like the man.
I love
it. So I got in my Twitter bio as the very first line, a pseudo Godzilla expert. You're really slamming me there, man. I'm going to listen to our old stuff, and anytime we even like barely scratch the surface of Japanese history, I'm going to be like, Zach really was hurting on that one. He probably winced when we said in the 50s and blah, 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 Japan, oil crisis, the 80s.
I mean, not really. Like, from the research I've done, like there's a lot of different sources, and because you're taking primary sources in a different language, I don't speak a word of Japanese. I can count to 3. But with all the translations and mistranslations, you really just have to kind of pick and choose. Does that make sense? Does that not make sense? And then kind of look and see what like the general consensus is in, you know, that specific community. But I'm, you know, not super smug. You know, I don't really get too hung up on the details because, you know, in the end, you know, we're all just watching, you know, monsters in rubber suits beat the crap out of each other, and we're just here to have fun.
Yeah, which is the best.
No, these are serious films.
Yeah,
These
well,
should
54.
be taken seriously all the time. Yeah, it is pretty serious. So Zach, when did you get into Godzilla? What got you into Godzilla? Tell us that whole story.
Sure. Well, I was born in the late 80s, so I kind of got to see like peak Showa era kaiju films on network television. It was pretty common for like the Turner Broadcasting networks to show Godzilla films on Saturdays. They'd usually start in the early afternoon and sometimes even like late at night. And I was probably 4 or 5, really into dinosaurs. You know, my dad was he grew up during the 50s and 60s, so he saw most of the Showa era films in theater. And so when he would see that they were on, he'd put the
grew up with a family
Sorry. Zach, I had a little disconnect for a second. Could you go back to you're talking about your dad had seen all the films?
Sure. Yeah, so my dad, he grew up in the 50s and 60s, so he saw most of the Showa era films like in theater. Had really, you know, positive memories about them. So when he would see them on TV, he would just turn them on, you know, knowing, oh yeah, he can watch this. This is okay. This is appropriate for a 4 or 5-year-old in the early 90s. He'll be fine. And I got to, you know, exposed to not just Godzilla, but I saw things like War of the Gargantuas, Rodan, all that, because they would just cycle all the Toho stuff in and out. And, you know, it was just something that I don't. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Drew.
No. You just named off 2 of the best of the B and C class movies or stars. So yeah, go on.
Oh yeah. So for years, I thought like War of the Gargantuas was a fever dream. You know, I'd seen it, and I was like, I vaguely remembered like a green and a brown dude wrestling in like furry costumes, and you know, I'd bring it up, and people would be like, "What are you talking about? Like, what is this?" And just, you know, I think when they did the DVD release that had War of the Gargantuas and Rodan on it, I was like, I didn't make this up. This was a thing.
Yeah, forever
but anyway,
flight having given that DVD away to our listeners. I should not have. Those are 2 of the greatest, and that was an amazing double pack.
Oh yeah, and
you
if
have
you look
good
at
taste, Zach. You have good taste.
And then when you go and look at what it costs to get it on DVD now, I weep.
I know I got it for like $12. Oh.
That's
what
my.
What are we looking at now?
I think the last time I checked,
easily,
it was
I would
around
get 50s, 60s minimum.
Yeah, I think like a used open one was like 75 the last time I checked.
Gosh.
I'm looking it up.
But I was like, you know, I would pull the trigger if it were a Blu-ray, but for a DVD that was printed like 10 years ago or more, no, I can't do it.
Yeah, they need to do a Criterion releasing of some of those like secondary features. Maybe not in such a big case, but you know, just War of the Gargantuas, Space Amoebas, Frankenstein Conquers the World, Rodan, stuff like that, Mothra.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't, considering what they own the rights to. Like Criterion pretty much owns or has licensed everything from the Showa era, except for maybe like Latitude Zero and the Mysterians. But like when they did that, you know, they did the big book set that, you know, is in the weird packaging that has all the Godzilla films in it. But they have the rights to, you know, like Frankenstein Conquers the World, War of the Gargantuas, Rodan, and they have their budget line of releases, which name escapes me. I have a couple of them, but they're like
Eclipse.
Eclipse. The slim packed DVDs. I'm surprised they didn't even just put something like that together on the cheap, just to be like, hey, and if you don't want to spend $120 on the Godzilla box set, you know, we've got this.
Well, I want to say with the main Godzilla films, didn't it? It felt like it took them at least a year and a half or 2 from when they hit like I think it was called Filmstruck, but now it's the Criterion Channel streaming service. And Joe and I, for a long time, were like, so eventually we're going to get a physical release, and it took a while. So give it maybe 5 years, and then we'll see that, if even.
Yeah.
Keep speculating.
I remember. I want to say it was like November 2017 when Criterion was like, "Hey, we got the rights to all this Godzilla stuff, but they didn't have the rights to, King Kong versus Godzilla." And I think that was probably the big holdup because Universal holds the rights to that. So I assume they just licensed it, but I never really did a deep dive into like who owns what for this particular box set. I have it; it's awesome.
So but King Kong is on there because I just saw that at Walmart on like DVD for like $3. King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah, the Criterion box set has everything from the Showa era that had Godzilla in it. It's a really nice set. It's just like the only thing that drives me nuts is I can't stand the packaging because it doesn't fit on a shelf.
The Angry Video Game Nerd had a whole video where he like jokingly tried to put it on any of his shelves, and it's like the specific dimensions, isn't it like a vinyl record plus some? It's more like shaped like a book.
Yeah, it's like a coffee table book, but super thin. The way I have it displayed is horrible. I have all of my like Gamera and Godzilla Blu-rays, and then on top of it, I have it laying across them. And then I'm using my Ultraman Blu-rays to weigh it down so it doesn't fall off the shelf.
Oh my gosh! This is like Transformers. You'll have to.
I can't buy the Godzilla one because I'm still in deep debt from buying the Ingmar Bergman set that Criterion put out 6 months before the Godzilla one. And it's basically like a computer. Like, it's a huge thing. So I assume the Godzilla one's about the same size if you're talking like... And I just make the Ingmar Bergman one when I have my TV stand out. It just sits right next to my PS4 displayed out so I could, flex to other film nerds that I have this like big, huge box set. So I can't wait, when I finally pay off that box set, I can't wait until... I get into more debt for the Godzilla one. I'm so excited to eventually purchase it.
Yeah, Joe. Even before the COVID, all the film nerds that were walking through your house, you gotta.
That's right.
I mean, at least on the nice side, I don't think the Godzilla box set sold anywhere near as well as they hoped it would, and it's always on sale. Like I feel like an idiot because I paid. I want to say like $150 for it, and not like 2 days later it was down to like $110.
Oh, okay.
Oh, but you got those pre-orders in, man. You never know. You didn't know how much it would have sold, and like then there's scarcity and blah 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 for a minute.
Oh, sure.
They only print those Criterion things once, so it will get scarce at some point. It might be over whatever now, but I know that like they put out a DVD of Ron, the Kurosawa film that Ishiro Honda worked on. I let you borrow the Kino video version, which Kino has the rights to the Blu-ray, but the DVD, which had like a commentary and a bunch of extra features that I've never seen and I want, that Criterion put out, I think early 2000s, maybe late 90s even, might have been. It was one of the earlier releases by them. It's like $1,000. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous amount of money. It might have been Ron. It might have been the Eclipse series of early Kurosawa films. I might be getting those two mixed up, but either way, it's expensive because of scarcity. So it eventually does that. People collect Criterion, so I assume the Godzilla movies will go the same route. Although for the next 2 years or so, I hope that's not the case because I do hope to buy that box set myself.
Same. It's a dream purchase, yeah, for sure.
It's very nice and it's definitely worth it. The transfers are phenomenal considering what they had to work with, especially 54. I mean, if you've seen the Criterion 54 that they put out a few years ago, it's the exact same disc and everything, but that transfer is incredible. Like it looks like something that was made now with how crisp the picture is. Really, the only one on the box set that's really rough is, Godzilla Raids Again. And I think that's just because they didn't have anything to work with. It was made quick, it was made cheap. But even then, for a not so good movie, it looks okay. And then you get into the stuff in color, and it's surprising how good some of those movies look on Blu-ray.
Hey, Criterion, are you listening? We need to get a cut on this episode. We're really first we knocked that the prices go up and down, but that's pretty good ad there, man. Hey, you're making me want it even more.
I mean, if you're even like a small level of fan, it's worth it just to have all the Showa era films in one set. Anybody that's been collecting Godzilla since even the DVD days knows how it's been a nightmare, especially with stuff in the Showa era. Before that box set, I have probably releases from like 6 or 7 different companies just on DVD, and then a lot of those films, the box set's the only way to get them on Blu-ray.
Oh man. Okay, yeah, I'm sold. So, speaking of Showa era films, give us a rundown of like some of your favorites, and well, how about this? How about we'll go in opposite order? What's the worst Godzilla film?
In general?
In any era?
In any era, sure.
I really, really hate the anime series.
Really?
Do tell.
I don't care for it. Like I used to be into anime a little bit like 20 some years ago, so a lot of my friends that are still in it will be like, "Oh my god, it's the boomer anime fan that hates everything now." But I just, I watched it and I was like, there's something here. Like there's a good idea, there's a good core here, but the way the way they went about it, I was just like, no, you wasted a whole movie in the middle. Like you set it up, the first 10 minutes I'm thinking, this is great, this is cool, and then they leave Earth and I go, what the hell? And and then just from where it played out, it just felt a little too tropey for me, like with the like the hero protagonist that just screams at everything, and I was like, okay, whatever. And then watched the second movie, and I'm just, and I'm a fan of like super weird, out there science fiction. I can, watch it and at least try to figure out where they're going. I was like, okay, so Mechagodzilla is a city. Okay.
City, that's right.
Mechagodzilla City. And then when the third one came around, I was just like, okay, so Ghidorah's angry space spaghetti. All right, I'm out. But from there, I at least have somewhat positive feelings about almost every other film. I just feel like the anime was like a super low point for me personally. If you like it, that's cool. I'm glad that you were able to enjoy it. It's just something where I was like, ugh.
I think the third one I was pretty okay with. I think the other two were rough. Pretty rough from what I remember. But we'll be watching them again.
Yeah.
Okay, so through each era, give us a top 3 of each era, and we can talk about them. Like, let's just go ahead and start with the Showa era.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, do we want to say 54, or is that too obvious?
I mean, go ahead.
Like 54, number 1 of the era, number 1 for me, which I don't think is an uncommon opinion. I feel like it just, it's more than a monster movie. It was a global phenomenon. It set the landscape for an entire generation of filmmakers. You can't overstate just how important that movie is, not just for fans of monster movies, but so many filmmakers were inspired by 54. It's like the ultimate cautionary tale. Man's messing with things they shouldn't. Man's messing with nature. This is what happens. And it's just well done. Even Godzilla King of the Monsters, despite being edited and with Raymond Burr added, you can still see a little bit of like the powerful bones that were there. but 54 itself just stands as a phenomenal film. And if it had not gone against Seven Samurai, that year in filmmaking in Japan is just like, holy crap, what a year. Yeah. But other than 54, then Godzilla versus Mothra, that's actually the first one I saw, and it just always had a soft spot for me. Godzilla bursting out of the earth, you're just, what the hell? Like, he's in the earth. What is this? And then a giant moth comes out of nowhere. It's the kind of thing where watching it, I was like, this is nuts, but I love it. And I was hooked. And then probably like my controversial pick is I've always also had a soft spot for Ebirah, just because it's like a King Kong Godzilla film that's also a little bit of a spy thriller. It's also the first one I bought, so super biased for it. I think I have like 3 different dubs for it, but it's also really, really pretty on Blu-ray. Like the colors, like it's got that really 60s color palette, but it works. And not necessarily a great film, but it's entertaining, at least to me.
I love Ebirah.
Me too.
I think Drew likes it too. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Ebirah's great, and I don't think that's a controversial pick at all. Maybe it is in the community, but I don't really. Those people.
I participate like at like from the outside a little bit with like the Godzilla subreddit, and I feel like Ebirah might be a little contentious for some, nowhere near as contentious as like Godzilla's Revenge though.
Yeah.
Okay. Why do you say it's a little contentious? Like, what have you?
Mostly, I think like the general vibe is that you can tell that this was supposed to be the 3rd Toho King Kong movie. Just the story treads aren't very Godzilla. Other than hey, he's just here. Like it feels like a completely different movie where they're like, all right, let's just we'll throw in Godzilla since we can't use King Kong. Oh, we might as well we'll throw Mothra into the mix, and it kind of just feels like, well, didn't we just do this movie? But now we have like a super evil organization in the vein of the James Bond movies. But I liked it. I thought Ebirah was a really unique monster. Like, who's gonna make a giant crab shrimp monster?
Yeah, the audacity. No, I'd agree. I enjoy it a lot, and I was surprised at how much I had enjoyed that one. But I think solid top 3. You're playing the hits, man. But truthfully, after 54 and Godzilla vs. Mothra, it's totally open for debate. Where your list of rankings can go from there. So I can absolutely see it being a number 3.
Oh yeah.
I mean, unless you said like Megalon or something, or
that would be.
All monsters attack, and then I might hang up. But
like, I mean, I enjoy them to an extent, but there are also ones where I'd be like, yeah, these are super cheesy. Like, if that's what you want, like, yeah, like you're gonna get your cheese. They are entertaining, but they're not great examples of filmmaking.
No,
and when you get towards the end of the Showa era, you start to get so much recycled footage, where you're like, okay, especially if you sit down. Like when I got the box set, I just sat down and watched them in order,
in a row.
And I was, if you take them individually without any additional like context, like okay, that's cool, but then you start to realize, hey, I saw the same effect shot like 4 times.
That's exactly what happens. I almost had a question in Stump the Host, which was, what film did Godzilla versus Gigan, take from? And then I looked at the list and I was like, oh no, it took from like 6 movies before it.
Yeah.
Including like War of the Gargantuas and stuff like that. Non-Godzilla movies that just took a bunch of footage from. And
I for sure remember that film in particular, and a couple of the show era ones being like, our commentaries on it were like, oh, and that shot is from, and that shot is from. It helped us pad out the time, because there was a lot of shots.
Yeah, and then I would probably, like, if somebody said, hey, pick something other than 54 because it's too obvious, then I would mention, Invasion of the Astro Monster.
Yeah. I love the human storyline in that for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I love Nick Adams in every like Toho movie he did. It was a shame that, he died when he did, because I thought it really what he brought to the roles, like in Frankenstein Conquers the World and Invasion of the Astro Monster, could have really opened up a more Western audience, having, like a character you could latch onto that wasn't a Japanese protagonist, and he was also, handsome and cool in these movies. You're like, that's, this guy's cool. I want to see what he does.
Yeah, and I just argue that in those cases, like, because I think he played alongside Takarada in that film, like, it's just cool to see two cool guys, American, Japanese, otherwise, like, throwing it up in this. I don't know. There is something special about that. So I'd agree in the sense that if he had continued, and even if, maybe like more like in War of the Gargantuans, where he was replaced because of his untimely death, yeah, I think it would just be. Yeah, I can see where that would have went, and that's very unfortunate.
Okay, so Heisei era.
So
what are your tops?
Heisei era, probably number one, Godzilla versus Biollante. I think everybody would say that. I just think it's a good film, not just a good Godzilla film, but I like you guys. I love the darker tones. I love it when Godzilla gets dark. I think that Godzilla as an agent of destruction just works on a fundamental level. It's also just kind of like it's out there. You've got a dude puts his dead daughter into a flower monster. Like, if you write this down on paper and you hand it to someone, they're going to ask you, what are you on right now? What are you talking about? Nobody would make this into a movie, but yet here it is. After that, probably Godzilla versus Destoroyah. I really like the effects, especially on the burning Godzilla suit. I was lucky that growing up, we had DirecTV, so a lot of the Heisei era films would just wind up like on pay-per-view. That's how I saw the Rebirth of Mothra trilogy in the late 90s. Like, they were just on DirecTV, and I was just like, what are these? I watched them as a kid, and I was listening to your talk about it, and I was like, no, you're right. As a kid, I hated this. I was, who's this for? I was super into Power Rangers. I was like, so I could kind of see like where they were going with it. I had no idea about Super Sentai at that time, but I was like, yeah, I guess. But no, I felt like it was like for girls, kind of. It's like, so as a 10-year-old boy, I was just like, no, I'm not feeling this. But getting back on track, I would then say probably Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. It's the only one I have a poster for. I love that poster art.
Oh, that poster is so good. I need to get a poster. Oh,
I snagged a really high quality one for like $20, but I have it in my room. My girlfriend looks at it and she's just like, "Oh, really? Why is this in the?"
Hey, my home has also been decorated by our wife. Otherwise, we would have some controversial, in her eyes, stuff up like that. Yeah, if I were to decorate. So I agree with you decorating. I'm 100% behind you.
But the funny thing is, for my last birthday, she bought me a Squirrel Squad flag, and she's like, "Yeah, put this in your office. It'll be cool." I was like, "So this is fine, but the Godzilla poster, that's too much." Okay, well, at least we know where the line in the sand is.
So Pokemon's fine, but not Godzilla.
Huh? Yeah, but she's a diehard Pokemon fan, so it makes sense.
Pokemon is cute nerdy. Godzilla is nerdy.
Well, that and, Pokemon's the biggest media franchise of all time, so everybody likes Pokemon.
Pretty universally accepted, exactly.
Yeah. But with Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, just like the time travel stuff, it's so zany and out there, but it works. I just think, hey, this is fun. There goes my cat screaming to say hello. But it worked for me. But yeah, it would just Biollante versus Destoroyah and versus King Ghidorah for Heisei.
Oh yeah, Destoroyah's great.
Solid pick.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I think that's pretty close to what my top 3 was last week. Yeah. Okay. Millennium series. I haven't seen a lot of these movies. I've only seen 2000. think I've seen Tokyo. I've seen either. No, I've seen Final Wars, and I've seen Tokyo SOS. So there's a couple there in the middle I haven't seen. But
have you seen GMK?
No.
That should be the next on your list. Honestly, that's probably the best Millennium film. Like, it's just really, like, it's old school. Like, Godzilla's a villain in it, and then you have Mothra, Baragon is in it, gets killed pretty quickly early on.
Oh, spoilers, man! I'm just kidding.
I mean, you can edit that out if you need to. But it's one of those films where most people, like, when it comes to the Millennium series, they're like, Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, giant monsters, all out attack. Crazy name, awesome movie. Then I would say that's my number one. Then number two, Godzilla 2000. Always had a huge soft spot for it. Second Godzilla movie I saw in theaters. I'm sure you can guess what the first one was. But I was like, wow, this is great. This is what I thought Godzilla 98 was going to be. My small town theater had it, went to go see it, and was awestruck, thought this is great. Like, I hope they make more. And then it just kind of, after 2000, it was kind of hard to see these films until, like, DVD kind of blew up a little more and they started getting imported. But then I would say I love Final Wars. I know a lot of people don't, because it's,
Hey, I'm in your camp. Final Wars is my jam, man.
I love it because of how campy it is. Like, to me, it feels like a love letter to the Showa era, which the Showa era is my favorite era of Godzilla, but, you've got just the right level of camp. And then you've got that mid-2000s, late 90s, like the overused tropes, like from The Matrix, and, the black pleather, the sunglasses, all that, and it just goes nuts. And, then you have the human element compared with just Godzilla wrecking shop the whole movie. Like, who didn't love it when he throws Zilla into the Sydney Opera House and just kills him in like 2 seconds? Like that is a hilarious scene that just, a lot of fans love because of the disdain for 98. But, I know it's not a good movie, but it's super entertaining.
This is a spoiler for our future commentary, but I loved that film as well, and Joe hadn't seen it, so I lent it to him in high school, like, Joe, this movie's really cool. He came back so mad at me.
I can see that happening.
I was about to say, the first time I watched it, I thought it was terrible. But I'll give it a second go. I have no choice. We have a show to do.
Just, like, try to look at it from the lens of, this was supposed to be the 50th anniversary project. There's a lot of callbacks to the older movies. It's supposed to be cheesy, and, it's got Minya in it. So how can you hate it?
Yeah, and I mean, Joe, the Matrix films are some of your favorite films, and this has black leather, Matrix-esque fighting. Come on.
Yeah, because that's why I love the Matrix.
Exactly, you love it because of its outer shell, not the inner mechanics or the films themselves. Right.
Nothing else in the Matrix is worth watching except for the costumes.
When we do appear at a G-Fest 5 years from now, when this is all done, Joe will be in a leather trench coat, some shades.
Oh, dude, I wore a trench coat in junior high, because I am a nerd.
Did you get tackled by school security, man? They're thinking you were going to, shoot up?
I mean, it was appropriate. It was winter, and, we just, had a trench coat, and it was cold, and so I'd walk around in that. It's really comfortable, actually.
Was it black?
But wow, yes. Yes, it was a black trench coat.
Tell me there was a fedora involved.
And there's no fedora, because that's not what Neo did, but I definitely did the slick back hair.
Yeah, but I was about to say slick back hair when you show up at G-Fest. But Joe, the fedora is just your spin on the Matrix look. There wasn't a fedora guy in it, so in your fan fiction of the Matrix, come on, man, you're the guy that wears the fedora.
But if we can, if we can convert Joe to a Final Wars diehard, maybe we could get him in skin-tight leather And
oh no one wants to see that.
You never know.
Au contraire, mon frère, you know? I would love to sit across from you at this table once this COVID thing is over. Final Wars, skin tight leather.
You to hear like a bunch of like leather creaking as I move around in the mic.
We'll stream that one visually, and Joe will be man-spreading the whole time at webcam.
Isolation is doing weird things to all of us.
I'm telling you, man. I'm losing it. Yep.
I'm having the time of my life. I don't know anybody else.
I'm playing nothing but video games, watching a ton of movies. Now I'm just like running out of stuff to do.
I know. I'm the introvert, and I'm the one losing it. Joe's the extrovert, and here he is like, I love it.
Maybe I should have stayed inside the whole time. I don't know why I always felt like I needed to go somewhere. Why not? Just stay home. I've been doing some writing. I've been reading. I've been playing video games. Been watching movies. Oh.
Been wearing skin-tight leather.
That's right, and skin-tight leather, which I found somewhere. You know, my dad makes saddles, so there's tons of leather in his shop. Maybe I'll have him make me a suit.
Here we go. Look at what I've done.
Joe, hey, Joe, Pulp Fiction style, make your father make you a gimp suit. That's not going to be a... That's what you'll come out of the COVID quarantine with.
Just if anybody asks, just be like, I was told there was an apocalypse. Didn't you see Mad Max? No? Okay.
Yeah, my dad made this for me. These were different times. We were all losing it.
I felt literally like sick when you just said that as a possibility. I had to go through the idea of like
I've achieved what I aimed for.
I had to go through the thought process of like actually asking him, like, what would that be like? Oh yeah, I don't feel good anymore. Oh. Okay,
I have accomplished what I aimed for. All right, go
on. What are your thoughts on Shin Godzilla and the two American Godzilla films that have come out?
I love how you left out the third American Godzilla.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. The recent ones is what I meant, but you could, what do you think of 98? That's our next movie.
I don't hate 98. I know a lot of people absolutely loathe that movie. I have a little bit of the tinted goggles because, it was the first Godzilla movie I saw in theaters. The marketing campaign was super hype. All the commercials.
I still have my Godzilla backpack. I saw it in storage the other day, and I was like, there it is. There's my Godzilla 1998 backpack.
When it came out...
the crap out of that film.
When it came out on 4K, I bought it when it dropped down to like $15 and figured, well, let's just watch it. Let's see how it stands the test of time. And, after it was over, I was like, I wish Jean Reno made more movies because he carried that whole film for me. I just love that character. But
what did you see, old man? What is the line he says before he holds the lighter up to him? It's like, what are you? Something, old man. It's a great line. I'll talk about it when we get to the commentary, I'm sure.
Yeah. But for me, I'm just like, this isn't a Godzilla movie, but this is a phenomenal remake of the Beast from 40,000 Fathoms.
I haven't actually seen that one. Does it have like another nuclear thing and then it goes through New York?
It goes through New York, but it's it's the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms before people get upset. But it's credited as it's a debate whether or not it's the first kaiju movie because it does predate Godzilla by 1 year, and I don't think it's public domain, but it's pretty easy to find, but it's about a giant dinosaur-like monster, kind of looks like an iguana, that rampages through, I want to say it's New York City. I haven't seen it in a while, but the most famous shot from it is an effect shot where there's a police officer, shooting at it with his service revolver, and the monster leans down and picks him up by his head. It's in black and white, it's claymation.
I was immediately thinking stop motion, and great comparison for that film, for 98.
And I don't know for sure, because I stopped doing research on 98 when I read about the movie they were working on before it, which sounded like super cool. But I feel like there's probably a lot of, hey, the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms in that movie. I do think there was a nuclear bomb test, but like I said, I haven't seen the movie in like 15, 20 years. But I also feel like Roland Emmerich was like, hey, I hate Godzilla. Let's make something American, and let's use the American outline we had from 1953. So I don't hate it, don't love it. I think there's some cool ideas in there, and I know I didn't watch it, but I know a lot of people love the cartoon series that came from it. So obviously, there's some nostalgia for it, even if people won't admit to it.
I watched that cartoon series. I remember that as a kid. Taped some on VHS too.
With like Legendary Godzilla, I don't hate them. I think the first one, I thought the teaser trailer, I was super hyped. I was like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. Like the Halo jump scene, it's like, oh, this is cool. They're just, and I know a lot of people go, oh, there isn't a lot of Godzilla in it. And it's like, Godzilla's not really in a lot of movies anyway. I just didn't care for the human drama. Like once Bryan Cranston's out, I don't care about any of these other characters. I want to see Heisenberg fight Godzilla.
Same. This is in theater watching that for the first time. I was angry when he passed away, and for a minute I was like, "There's no way. He's joking. He can't actually be dead."
Right, and I was like, "You sold me on Bryan Cranston Godzilla movie, and you take him out of the movie 25, 30 minutes in. Okay, whatever." And I did, I love the kaiju fights, especially the final fight. I thought this was awesome. When Godzilla's spines and tails start lighting up, like the theater I was in went nuts. Like people were screaming, like, "Oh my god!" Everybody was there. And their girlfriends are sitting there, like, "What's wrong with these people? It's a giant lizard. He's glowing. Why? And it was really cool to see it in theater. King of the Monsters, I liked it, but it just felt like a mess. And with Godzilla versus Kong, I'm cautiously optimistic that they can rein it in, but it just feels like they aren't listening to what the fans want, and they're trying to make these films have like super wide market appeal, and they're leaving out what a lot of the fans want to see. Like I think James Rolfe's criticisms were perfect. Like we don't want to see the monsters fight in the dark. Like yes, it's CGI, yes, it helps cover mistakes, but we want to see these monsters that all of us grew up with. We want to see them on the big screen. We're going to forgive a lot of effects errors. We want to see the fights. But I think, Ghidorah was cool. And like that was probably the most intimidating Ghidorah. I feel like they just nailed it. Obviously they had constraints using a suit, but like the full-on CGI Ghidorah is like, this is terrifying. Like if this thing was running around, we would have no hope. And then when it comes to Shin, though, probably my second favorite overall.
Yeah.
I can agree with that.
Same.
I've actually ran into a couple people. I'm not sure if it was here, like the Kaiju quarantine thing they did a few weeks ago. I know there's some people that I'm hearing some people that don't really care for Shin Godzilla.
Oh yeah, I come across it a lot.
I haven't. Yeah, I didn't come across that before, and I was like, wow, there's people who don't like it. What?
I feel like you need to have a fundamental understanding of Japanese politics and the bureaucratical process, and realize like, yes, this is satire. They are making fun of the extreme bureaucratical processes one would have to go through in Japan, and I'm sure it's like that in a lot of.
No one can make a decision, and it's really frustrating to watch them all just go through meeting after meeting after meeting. I thought that was it's a part of the movie that it's part of the thing that makes that movie great, in my opinion. But
but I can see where people would be turned off, for similar reasons. Like I just want to see Godzilla break buildings. But, as far as, like, kaiju action goes, like, I think it has some of the most spectacular scenes in the entire franchise. Even if you
go.
Even if you don't care for, the political stuff going on in the background, like, the scenes where Shin Godzilla is just destroying Japan. Just like this is insane. This is intense. Like he's genuinely terrifying, and it goes back to Godzilla being an agent of chaos and destruction, the hubris of man, all of that good stuff. Like that feels like the ultimate love letter to 1954 to me.
Right. I do wonder. I guess there's just different types of Godzilla fans. I think. Yeah, it's starting to run into people that maybe see, like, there's obviously people have a lot of issues with the 2014 one. I really like it, but I remember the guy behind me during the 2014 one. It's like, where's Godzilla? And he was like really angry in the movie theater, like, where is he? They did the opposite with King of the Monsters. And I don't know. There's a happy medium there, and I think Shin Godzilla actually hits that thing. But maybe to some people, it's too much talking.
Yeah,
and just not enough Godzilla.
Going back to like Legendary Godzilla 2014, like there are charts that show you like the breakdown for like Godzilla per minute in every film up to that point, and it's not that far off. I just think people did not resonate with the human side of the film.
Yeah, and absolutely.
Because it's so abysmal, they're just like, no, it's one thing, like, if you don't have a lot of kaiju action, but the human side's at least compelling, you can make it work. You're like, okay, at least I care about these characters. This is kind of a fun idea. It's a little adventure with giant monsters roaming around. But if you either have to have awesome kaiju action or at least okay kaiju action with a compelling human drama. Like, if you don't have one of those two things, the movie's just not going to work for most people.
Yeah, pretty much if the main actor guy, who portrays Bryan Cranston's son, if he had 1 ounce of charm in his entire body, then that movie would be much more compelling.
Oh, definitely.
I actually do agree with Joe. I don't mind that film. I like Godzilla 2014. It's just that one glaring issue.
Yeah, but at the same time, I try to approach all these movies through the lens of this is a giant monster movie. This is not going to win an Academy Award for the best film ever made, even though like 54 kind of got close. But I don't expect the best scripts. I don't expect the best performances, but I also feel like it's not too hard to make something serviceable, and it's very easy to make something that's just abysmal.
Well, I've got a quiz here. I got Stump the Host, is what we call this game. And it's going to be you, Zach, against Drew. I have 5 questions and a tiebreaker if we go into a tie. And we basically go by turn. So the first question, Zach, you answer. The second question, Drew, you answer. If you cannot answer the question, then it will be given to the other person for a guess. And if they can't answer, you get one more shot at it.
Alrighty.
Okay. So
Sounds
I hope
good.
You guys are ready for this. Drew, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. The first quiz question is, the deployment of what Showa-era weapon led to the inadvertent creation of Destoroyah? Zach, guest goes first.
The Oxygen Destroyer?
Correct. The Oxygen Destroyer. Zach gets 1
Joe,
point.
the rest of these questions had better be softball questions because this guy wrote a 15-page essay, his thesis.
But hey, on the plus side, it was just on 54.
It was just on
But
54,
exactly, that's
right.
what I'm saying. It's on 54, and you just you just rolled that one in from the mound, man. Come on.
Well, your question I wouldn't be able to answer. Name the movie. Given these alternative international titles: Godzilla on Monster Island, War of the Monsters, that's the UK title, Earth Objective Mission Apocalypse, that's the French title, Frankenstein's Hellblood, which is the German title.
Why did they always have Frankenstein involved in those German titles?
German monster.
Right. Exactly. Okay, well, Joe, just from one of those, you said an island?
Godzilla on Monster Island.
Go with Son of Godzilla.
Incorrect.
Dang.
Zach, You get a guess.
Destroy all monsters.
Incorrect. Drew, you get one more chance.
Abira.
Incorrect. The answer is Godzilla vs. Gigan.
Really?
Yeah. I was on the Godzilla vs. Gigan page, and I looked down, and it was like the international titles. I'm like, these are insane.
Do they have an island scene on there in that
Godzilla
one?
Godzilla on Monster Island.
I think that's the one where Anguirus and Godzilla talk on the island before they swim to shore. But oh man, what a
Frankenstein's Hellblood and Earth Objective Mission Apocalypse. Pretty great titles, I think. They make no sense.
I mean, Earth Objective Mission Apocalypse kind of makes sense when you think about the plot, but, I would have never in a million years Godzilla versus Gigan.
No, me neither. Yep.
All right. Zach, your question. In the Millennium series, only one movie is a direct sequel. What is it?
Godzilla versus Biollante.
Incorrect. Drew.
Oh,
your guess.
You literally picked the era I'm least familiar with, Joe. Okay, so the Millennium series starts off with. I'm just gonna guess here. Is it Godzilla 2000?
Incorrect.
No.
Godzilla 2000 is not a sequel to any movie.
Well, I just figured they knew what Godzilla was, so I thought that maybe there was some continuity from the previous generations of films. Dang it. All right.
Zach?
Yeah, it's Godzilla against Mechagodzilla.
Incorrect.
Really?
Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, I think, comes before Godzilla Tokyo SOS, which is the sequel.
Oh, I was approaching it like Godzilla against Mechagodzilla is a direct sequel to 54.
So far, Zach's managed 1 point, and I have none, correct?
We're bad. We are bad at quarantine trivia.
Yeah, it's almost as if we've lost our minds.
All right, Drew. Let's hope you can get your mind back together for this one. Your question is, Toho originally conceived this film as a 13-episode TV series.
Wait. This one film? Or this trilogy of films? Is it the anime?
Possibly. Would you like to make a guess?
Yeah, that's my guess.
You are correct. It's Godzilla Monster Planet and its sequels. So the film was originally.
I was going to actually cite that when Zach was talking about it, because I was like, well, we can only speculate, but I actually assumed it would have come off better if they had went with that plan. But hey,
Maybe. I mean, you'd probably have to break down the runtime for a 13-episode series versus the 3 movies. Because, I was thinking the same thing. On one hand, they could flesh it out a little more, but at the same
we
time,
actually understand the difference between these 2 other alien races that look pretty humanoid.
But at the, in a similar vein, they did have over 4 hours in the movies to do that and failed to do it. So would it have really made a difference?
True.
Okay. Zach, this is the last question. You're both tied right now. So if you get this, you win. If you don't get this, I have to go into tiebreaker.
He could pass it to me and I could get it.
Unfortunately, I think this one's pretty easy. So I'm sorry, Drew. Before directing the 1998 Godzilla film, Roland Emmerich's previous venture broke box office records. What was the movie he directed right before Godzilla 1998?
Independence Day?
Independence Day!
I knew that! All right.
If it makes you feel better, I had to sit there and think for a minute. I was like, it's either Independence Day. When you said broke records, it's like, it has to be Independence Day. But I was like, but did that come before or after Stargate?
Yeah.
So I did have to think about it briefly.
The next question would have been... Yep. Congratulations, Zach. The next question would have been, name the singing duo who played the Shobijin in Godzilla vs. Mothra and Ghidorah, the three-headed monsters.
By name? I would have just said the Peanuts.
The Peanuts, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the Peanuts. The duo's name is the Peanuts. So
I was like, if you want the actresses' names, I don't know.
Drew loses once again. Bam.
Yeah, I think I've won at least one time. I think I lost,
I think you have
won, and lost. So I'm up for a win next time.
Yeah.
You're just a gracious host, that's all. You don't want the guests to feel bad.
Yeah, exactly. We already all feel bad enough, so we got to uplift some spirits here. Come on, guys.
All right. Well, Drew's being a Debbie Downer today.
Hey, well, I'm stuck inside. How about you?
I'm stuck inside too. Yeah.
It's been a wonderful talk. I really enjoyed your insight into these films, man, and your passion for them, Zach.
Oh, I appreciate it. I will shoot you a picture so you can see the Godzilla Transformer collection. If you want to put it on your Twitter, feel free. But
send it via Discord.
Yeah, if you put it in the Discord chat, I could put it as the artwork for the episode.
Perfect.
Awesome. All right, Zach, is there anything you want to add before we're out of here?
I got nothing other than somebody please port and remaster Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee, Godzilla Saves the Earth.
Is that a game?
Have you never played Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee?
No.
I rented those from Hollywood back in the day quite often, and I convinced my friend that these games were amazing and forced them to play them with me because they were amazing.
Let's set the stage for you before we go, Joe. How do you feel about arcade fighting games?
I love Mortal Kombat.
How would you like to play Mortal Kombat but with 3D kaiju?
I like the idea of it.
I mean, obviously, it's not violent. You're not ripping people apart, and I don't think there's any blood, but
I'd assume there'd be some like green blood, right?
But it's
I don't really remember.
It's been a long time, but it's like a 3D fighting game with all the monsters up until that point. It was on GameCube when it came out, and then I think.
Oh, I definitely played a demo of that when I was a youngster in like Shopko, I think.
But there's like a large number of people that are just like, please. Every time a Godzilla movie comes out, they're like, please port these games. These were our childhood.
Oh, for sure.
I feel like, man, Toho's distribution sucks outside of Japan. It just sucks.
Yep.
It's okay.
And I feel like it doesn't have to.
Like, the funny thing is, like, it's okay in Australia. Like, I have friends in Australia that are like, oh yeah, we have these box sets. And if you ever see like the Australian releases, they have like Toho approved box sets for each era of Godzilla.
Of course.
And then, oh no. And I thought about importing them at one point because I just wanted everything in a nice, easy to look at set. I know a lot about Godzilla distribution, if you haven't noticed. I collect the media. Like, I don't do the action figures, I just collect the home media. But they have this nice box set in Australia, and then when you get outside of Japan and Australia, it becomes a crapshoot. I know I don't know if it's still the case, but in Europe, there's a lot of films you can't buy, period. In the United States, there's so many different hands in the pot as far as distribution. Like the Millennium series was the only one at one point in the United States that all had the same publishing company, which was Sony.
And even those are getting kind of rare.
Yeah. And then like probably the worst one now is Godzilla versus Biollante. Miramax had the rights to it. I don't know if they still do, but with all that's going on in their world, I don't think they care about reprinting a Godzilla movie.
Okay.
So if you want
it frustrates me.
If you want sticker shock, look up what a copy of Godzilla vs. Biollante goes for on Blu-ray.
I got it on Blu-ray, man. I got it just before the printings, went out, and it was like suddenly people caught wind of that, and I think I got it for less than $20. But yeah, that's gonna be like $120 like minimum probably. That was when I looked at it when we did that commentary. It's probably only went up.
Oh. Well, Zach, thank you so much for joining us today. Everybody, the Godzilla podcast is now on YouTube, so if you want to go check out the Godzilla podcast on there, awesome. You can support us on Patreon if you want. Thank you, Zach, for your support. Thank you, everybody who has supported us and is supporting us now. Keeps the show going, and it just bought like $90 worth of stickers, which I have to send out when COVID is over, so who knows when I'll get those stupid stickers, but they will be here, and I will resend them out for those who haven't gotten them yet. And, yeah, I think that's it.
We bid a final farewell to our Godzilla grad, Zach. Hey, Zach, do you got any parting words to the Godzilla podcast audience?
Keep it G.
Oh, man, you stole my line. Thank you.
Perfect.